Ronda Rousey was the most dominant champion in women's MMA history. 12 straight wins, 6 title defenses, 9 armbar finishes, a record that nobody in the division could touch. But here's the question that has followed her legacy for nearly a decade. Was it the skill that did all of it, or was it the matchmaking? Was Rousey beating the best the division had to offer, or was the division being carefully arranged around her so that she could be the star the UFC needed her to be? Let's get into it. Ronda Rousey signed with the UFC in November 2012. She became the first woman ever signed by the promotion. She became the inaugural UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion in February 2013, beating Liz Carmouche at UFC 157 by armbar in round 1. From there, the run was historic. Miesha Tate at UFC 168, armbar, round 3. Sarah McMahon at UFC 170, TKO from a knee to the body, 66 seconds. Alexis Davis at UFC 175, KO 16 seconds. Kat Zingano at UFC 184, armbar 14 seconds. The fastest title fight finish in UFC history at the time. Beta Correa at UFC 190 in Rio de Janeiro, KO 34 seconds in front of 14,723 fans on the Challenger's home soil. 6 title defenses, most of them finished inside the opening round, half of them by armbar. The skill was real. The dominance was real. The records will sit in the history books forever, but the conversation has never fully settled. Because behind that dominance was a women's bantamweight division that the UFC had essentially built around one fighter. The question that lingers is whether Rousey's opponents were the best the world had to offer, or simply the most marketable matchups available at the time. The division that was built around her. When Rousey entered the UFC in 2012, the women's bantamweight division did not exist. It had to be created. Dana White had spent years publicly stating that women would never fight in the UFC. Then Rousey arrived, and the entire ecosystem was reshaped around her. The opponents she faced were the opponents who were available. Kat Zingano was the most legitimate contender on paper, and she got finished in 14 seconds. Miesha Tate was the rival the UFC marketed hardest, and Tate was 0-2 against Rousey across 2 fights. Beta Correa was matched up after a viral trash talk feud that played beautifully on broadcast television. The criticism that has followed Rousey's run is not that she avoided fights, because she did not. It is that the depth of the division behind her was thin, and the UFC's matchmaking team was building events around a star rather than building a competitive ladder. The McMahon fight that raised questions. Sarah McMahon was an Olympic silver medalist in wrestling. On paper, she was the kind of grappler who should have given Rousey her toughest test inside the cage. The fight was billed as a clash of 2 of the best female grapplers on the planet. It lasted 66 seconds. Rousey landed a knee to the liver. McMahon folded. Referee Herb Dean stepped in. The stoppage was widely criticized as premature. McMahon herself protested, but the result stood, and Rousey moved on to the next defense with another highlight reel finish on her record. The conversation around Rousey's dominance started to shift. The wins were real, but the circumstances around some of them were beginning to look convenient. The Holm fight that broke the pattern. Holly Holm was different. Holm was a former multi-time world boxing champion, technical, disciplined, and managed by Greg Jackson, one of the best strategists in MMA. She was not a grappler trying to out-grapple Rousey. She was a striker with a specific game plan to take Rousey out of her comfort zone. UFC 193 in Melbourne, November 14, 2015. 56,214 fans in Etihad Stadium, the largest live crowd in UFC history at that point. Round 1 belonged to Holm. She moved, she circled. She made Rousey look slow and predictable in a way nobody had managed before. Round 2, 59 seconds in, Rousey lunged forward for a clinch. Holm angled off and landed a left head kick that connected flush. Rousey hit the canvas unconscious. Herb Dean waved it off. The most dominant champion in women's MMA history had been knocked out cold by the first opponent who had been technically prepared to neutralize her style. But the bigger reveal was not the loss itself. It was what the loss said about every fight that came before it. The comeback that confirmed the theory. 13 months later, Rousey returned at UFC 207 on December 30th, 2016, against Amanda Nunes. The conditions of that return raised more questions than the fight itself. Rousey did no press conferences, no open workouts, no standard fight week media. Dana White confirmed publicly that she had asked to skip all of it, and he had said yes. He called it a one-time exception based on what she had done for the promotion. Nunes was the reigning champion, fresh off submitting Miesha Tate at UFC 200. She was dangerous, but she also had cardio questions and a lower public profile than fighters like Holm. The accusation that Rousey's team had identified Nunes as a manageable path back to the belt, rather than a harder rematch with Holm, took hold in the MMA community. The fight lasted 48 seconds. Nunes landed 27 of 47 significant strikes. Rousey landed 7 of 14. Same striking flaws, same defensive gaps, same result as the Holm fight, just faster. Rousey never fought in the UFC again. The case against Rousey's legacy has never been that the wins were fake. The wins were real. The arm bars were real. The records will stay in the books. The case is that the era she dominated was an era the UFC built around her, with opponents who were marketable rather than maximally dangerous, and with matchmaking decisions that protected the star until the moment a fighter with the right preparation finally got through. Holly Holm got through. Amanda Nunes confirmed it. 2 consecutive opponents with elite striking pedigrees exposed flaws that nobody else had been allowed to test. The question is not whether Ronda Rousey was great. She was. The question is whether her greatest advantage was the armbar, the work ethic, the judo background, or whether it was the matchmaking that kept the wrong opponent away until it was too late to matter. Drop a comment. Was Ronda Rousey's run built on her skill? Or was it built on matchmaking that kept the most dangerous opponents away from her? Hit like and subscribe for more breakdowns like this one. See you in the next fight.